From all of us here
at 5EBI FM,
Merry Christmas
to you
and yours, and a very safe and happy New Year.
Every Monday to Friday, I give you morning music vitamins, music pills with Dieter from around the world. From 9 till 11 a.m., give yourself a lift on Radio 5, EBI FM and Digital World. Morning music vitamins.
The Government of South Australia supports Community Broadcaster 5 EBI,
its member groups
and volunteers.
Welcome to the Tune Tapestry, the show where we tug at the threads of traditional and classical music from across time and place and discover the surprising connections around the world. Yes, this is the Tune Tapestry here at 5EBI 103.1 FM, South Australia's multicultural broadcaster. And the Tune Tapestry is where we look at traditional and classical music and instruments from around the world. This is our second week looking at fiddles and fiddle-like instruments. That is, stringed instruments that you play with a bow that are surprisingly universal. So we're going to be visiting a lot of countries this morning and listening to their fiddle-like instruments. But we'll start in Ireland, one of the places that most people think of when they think of fiddles, I think. Specifically, here is Althon, a group from Donegal, with Mairead Ní Paul O'Shaughnessy, Frankie Kennedy, Kieran Curran, Mark Kelly, and they're playing a strathspey and two reels, which are traditional tune types found in Scotland and Ireland. So here we go, Althon playing fiddle music. This is Althun, a group from Donegal in Ireland, playing fiddle music. But fiddle-like instruments are found worldwide, and even there are specific subfamilies of fiddle-like instruments. One of them is the rebab, which is the name of a number of related instruments from across the Islamic world, which of course stretches basically from Spain to Indonesia. So we're going to talk about a couple of them, but the rebab was originally developed in the 8th century and is the ancestor of a lot of other bowed string instruments. One of them is the rabel from Spain, which is descended from the medieval rebec and therefore the rebab, and it's first mentioned in the 12th century. It's used in parts of Latin America as well as Cantabria and Asturias. I wasn't able to find any rabel music because unfortunately it's one letter away from rebel, so every time I searched I would just get like random music with rebel in the title, so that wasn't at all helpful. So we're not listening to any music from Latin American rabel, which is a fiddle type instrument, but instead we'll talk about other sorts of rebab, specifically in Indonesia and Malaysia. The one in Indonesia is used in the gamelan orchestra. I don't know how much you know about gamelan orchestras. I had to learn to play in one when I was in university, but it's just a lot of bells, I would say, and you hit them with mallets. And it was used it's still used, I presume, in royal courts in Indonesia. But anyway, this rebab is used as an elaborating instrument, playing a melody line over the top of all these bells and gongs and things. And it has 2 strings with a wooden body made of a coconut shell covered with skin, so like a tiny little coconut drum. And there are 2 brass strings which are tuned a fifth apart. Shall I attempt to sing a fifth interval on the radio? I think I won't. Anyway, it's played with a horsehair bow. Malaysia also has a rebab, which is used primarily in the eastern states, such as Kelantan and Terengganu. Has 3 strings rather than 2, as in Indonesia, 3 tuning pegs, and the skin is made of cow's stomach. It's used in various musical ensembles. So we're going to listen now to Malaysian rebab. Maud Kamal Bahri and Zafaruddin Zainuddin playing rebab and acoustic guitar, respectively, in Kuala Lumpur. That was the Malaysian rebab, one of the rebab family of fiddle-like instruments. So we're going to go to the other end of what I'm going to call the rebab geographic spread, which is Spain. And this is the rebec, which was played mostly in the medieval times and early Renaissance. It has a boat-shaped body and 1 to 5 strings. It was introduced to Western Europe by the Arabic conquest of Iberia, although it is similar to the lira de braccio or arm lyre that already existed there. The strings are usually tuned in fifths or fourths, and the bridge is flat, so you can play multiple strings at once, which we didn't at all here in the Malaysian one that we just heard, so quite a different instrument, but apparently descended from the same instrument. Was played by professional minstrels and musicians, such as troubadours, at feasts. It was held at the shoulder, like a violin in Northern Europe, but in Southern Europe and Northern Africa, it was held in the lap. My notes say like a viola. I'm sure I mean like a cello, like a Malaysian rebab. And some rebecs had frets and some didn't. So we're going to hear one now. Obviously, we're listening to all sorts of music today on the radio. That's what the radio is for. But here is Ernst Stolz playing Tant es Gaia, a troubadour dance song on the rebec. That was a troubadour dance song played on the rebec, a medieval and early Renaissance instrument from Western Europe, specifically Iberia, which is Spain and Portugal. So, I said medieval. What's the modern version? The modern version is called the rabeca, and it is, my notes say, originated in the Entre Douro and Minho region of northern Portugal in the 18th century, and is a descendant of the medieval rebec, as I just said. Now, there is a short version, which is higher than a violin, which is played in Portugal alongside drums, triangle, and a gaita, which is a bagpipe. But in Brazil, they have a larger version, which has the same range as a violin, so it sounds similar to a violin. And it can be played either like a violin with the bass on the shoulder or like a cello with the bass on the knee. So here is Mestre de Pereira and Felipe Gomide playing Rebeca in Brazil. That was two people playing the Brazilian Rebeca, two separate instruments, two separate people. They weren't playing the same instrument, but Brazil is in South America, so let's go to North America, where the Apache fiddle, or Si Edo Atl, means wood that sings. It's made from a plant stalk, such as agave or cornstalk, and it has one or two horsehair strings. That's about all the information I could find about it. So here is a recording of it being played. Here is Anthony Belvado playing the Apache fiddle, one that he made himself. That was the Apache fiddle, a traditional instrument made from a cornstalk, played by the Apache people of the Americas. Let's go back to Europe. where there's the hurdy-gurdy. We've heard a medieval European instrument, the rebec. Now, the hurdy-gurdy, the Apache fiddle looks different, but it looks like it's made out of a cornstalk. It makes sense, and it sounds much like it looks. The hurdy-gurdy is one of the strangest-looking instruments I've ever seen. I've seen some strange-looking musical instruments. It has a crank-turned rosin wheel rubbing against the strings. Honestly, I cannot emphasize how strange the hurdy-gurdy looks. It's like a box with keys and somehow sounds a bit like a violin. And any explanation I give you is unlikely to help you picture it, but you play the melodies on a keyboard, which presses small wooden wedges against strings inside a little case. It's like a cross between a violin, a piano, and an accordion. And like a music box. And there are usually drone strings, thus hurdy-gurdies are often used interchangeably with small bagpipes, apparently. I was right in saying it's a cross with an accordion. It's the same sort of sound. And they're thought to have originated from fiddles or rebabs in either Europe or the Middle East, sometime before the 11th century, and it was very popular in the Renaissance. I'm not sure who looks at a fiddle and thinks, you know what, I should put this inside a box and only play it with a little handle and a couple of keys, rather than playing it with a bow like a normal fiddle. No, the hurdy-gurdy is cool. I don't know why I'm saying so many nasty things about it. And actually, one of my lecturers at university, a linguistics lecturer, not a music lecturer, played hurdy-gurdy in a band. That was Kate Burridge, who you might have seen on television. I'm told she's on television. She played hurdy-gurdy. It's an interesting instrument. And these days it is mostly played in Hungary, Poland, Belarus and Ukraine, as well as apparently in southeastern France and in Melbourne by my old lecturer. And there are also modern electric hurdy-gurdies. So this is like another step on from being a fiddle. It's a fiddle in a box that you play with keys and then they make it electric. Instruments are interesting. But anyway, here's Andrei Vinogradov playing reverse dance, a medieval dance on the hurdy-gurdy. That was the hurdy-gurdy, an instrument that's basically like a fiddle trapped in a box. Halfway to the concept of the hurdy-gurdy is the nyckelharpa, which means keyed fiddle or key harp, and is the national instrument of Sweden. It has 3 strings, which are tuned to A, C and G, and it has keys, which attach to hammers that press into the string rather than fingers, as most fiddles do. So that's why I describe it as being like a cross between a hurdy-gurdy and a normal violin. There are 4 variations of nyckelharpa, apparently, and it's played in the same position as a guitar, so that is hanging from the neck with a strap, which makes a difference because most of these fiddle-like instruments are either played with the bass resting on the shoulder or the bass resting on the knee. So this one, played hanging from the neck with a strap, held in front of the body like a guitar. Now, there's a picture of 2 nyckelharpers on the gates of a church in Gotland, dating from 1350 AD, which is 800 years ago. August Boylan made changes to it in 1929 to make it play chromatic notes like a violin, and that helped it to become more popular again, because it didn't play the chromatic notes, you could only play one scale, which to sort of modern Western music standards is considered somewhat limiting. And World Nyckelharpa Day takes place on the Sunday closest to the 26th of April, which is the birthday of a famous nyckelharpa player called Biskala. So here is Thomas Roth playing Ingredients on the nyckelharpa. was Thomas Roth playing Ingredients on the nyckelharpa, which is the national instrument of Sweden. Now, I presume that's ingredients of different pieces of violin music, so thanks to Ruth Hay for getting in touch with me during that song with different, as she recognised, different tunes that were part of that piece, including Bach's Toccata and Fugue, and another one that she said she recognises and doesn't know the name of. I agree. So we'll leave Europe for a bit. In fact, I think we're going to leave Europe for the rest of the programme. We're going now to China, where the erhu is a two-stringed instrument from China, as I said. The strings are tuned a fifth apart, which is a D and an A. There's a small cylinder sound box covered with python skin and a long neck. Now, I saw an erhu being played live when I was at university. I think I'm saying this about a lot of stuff. One of the other students that was living in the halls of residence was from China, and she played the erhu, and she played it at a talent show that we had. So the bow, I've seen it live, and I noticed, I was quite interested at the time, the bow goes between the string and the neck of the instrument, whereas most of these instruments, the bow is on the outside, you press down on their strings, whereas this you pull out, and that's how you get the tension on the strings. So it's used as a solo instrument, as well as in ensembles and orchestras. It's part of the huqin instrument family, which is used by many ethnic groups in China, and it's used in both traditional and contemporary music, including pop, rock, and jazz. It descends from the Shiqin, an instrument used by the Xi people in northeast China, who probably got it from a Mongolian people group, because huqin means barbarian instruments. And a similar instrument to the erhu, which is called the sihu, has 4 strings. So I mentioned it's used in traditional music, it's used in contemporary music. So here is an erhu player called Lemon Dew playing a cover of Rain in Jiang, which I think is a modern song. She's playing it on the erhu. was the erhu, a two-stringed instrument from China, played with a bow, often called the Chinese fiddle. So let's hop not very far away from China to Korea, where they also have a fiddle-like instrument called the haegum. It's also got two strings, just like the erhu, and is, just like the erhu, descended from the xiqin. It has a hollow wooden sound box, a long rod neck, and two silk strings. It is sometimes called the palum, or 8 sounds, because it is made with 8 materials: metal, stone, silk, bamboo, gourd, clay, hide, and wood. I don't know where they're putting all those materials, because I think most fiddles are just made with, like, metal, wood, and some sort of string. But apparently 8 different materials go into making a haegum, so it's very complex. It's unknown when it was first used in Korea, but it was definitely before the Goryeo dynasty, which was about 1,000 years ago. And as I was finding out information about the haegum, I found one person online who said, "I love this instrument, it sounds like a sad human voice." So let's see if you agree. Here is Jo Hye-ryong playing the haegum sanjo. was the haegum, a Korean two-stringed instrument descended from the shichen. I don't know, did you think it sounded like a sad human voice, as that one commentator said? It did sound, I thought, more like a human voice than most fiddles do. Because we're looking at fiddles. And we are coming to the end of the programme today. So we started the programme with Irish fiddle music, the group Altan from Donegal. So I thought we'll finish with Scottish fiddle music. But rather than finding a fiddle player from Scotland, we're going to hear from Cathy Fraser, who is South Australian. She lives in Strathalbyn. But her father is from Scotland, so she plays Scottish fiddle music. And this is going to be from their CD, Catherine Fraser and Duncan Smith's CD, Unity. Random fact for you guys, I once went on a tour with them and a bunch of other fiddle players around the southeast of South Australia, Robe, Kingston and so on. She's a great fiddle player and local to South Australia. So we're going to hear a tune she's playing called Iadolchas Machria, which means bad hope of my heart. This is why I shouldn't try to translate things on the fly, but more or less like that. Here is Cathy Fraser playing Scottish fiddle music. This has been the Tune Tapestry, the show where we tug at the threads of traditional and classical music from around the world and discover the surprising connections. Literal threads over the last few weeks, as it's been fiddle strings. So I hope you've enjoyed it. We've certainly musically globe-trotted all over the place today. And I hope you'll join me next week for the final instalment of Fiddle-Like Instruments. I'm here every Wednesday morning this summer at 8 a.m. for the Tune Tapestry. And that's pretty much all. So stick around because Dita is here at 9 a.m, Ben Hewitt later. Their shows are always interesting. Morning Music Vitamins, music pills with Dita from around the world. If you want to hear more multicultural music here at 5EBI, the Multicultural Broadcaster. So until Dita's program, I've been Rachel Hay, and I'll leave you with more of Kathy Fraser's fiddle music. Here we go. Well, I hope you'll have fiddle music eventually. There we go.
From all of us here
At 5EBI FM,
Merry Christmas
To you.
And yours. And a very safe and happy New Year.